Good morning to you all. We will be starting in 2 minutes. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, wherever you may be joining us from across this beautiful planet that we call home. I am Tawanushi Congo. I'm the Senior Program Officer for the ABS unit, responsible for ABS under the Convention and ABS under the Protocol. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. I'm joined by colleagues from the Secretariat, as well as colleagues from the ABS initiative. May I ask them to introduce themselves now? Nia and Alex, Catherine, and Hartmut, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandra Coelho, and I work as a support staff at the Secretariat in the ABS unit. Welcome to our webinar series.
Thanks, Alex, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nia Cherrit, and I work on capacity building and development within the ABS unit here at the Secretariat of the CBD. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening, even. My name is Katrin Münch. I am the project lead of the Multi-Donor ABS Capacity Development Initiative. Thank you for joining this webinar. Over to Hartmut.
Yes, also good morning from my side. I also work for the ABS initiative, and I'm happy that we have this very beautiful webinar today.
All right, thank you, colleagues, for introducing yourself. And once again, thank you all for accepting our invitation to this webinar, which, as you can see, is being held in collaboration with between the Secretariat of the Convention on Biodiversity and the ABS Initiative, Capacity Building Development Initiative. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be made available on the ABS Clearinghouse for future reference. This is the first in a series of 5 webinars that will run through to the end of the year. You will find more details in the chat. As many of you know, the ABS initiative has officially concluded after 2 decades of impactful work. Over the years, it has been a valued partner of the Secretariat, and we have a memorandum of understanding between Secretariat and the ABS initiative. Their contribution to the informal processes of the convention through webinars, workshops, videos, and a diverse range of other tools have played a significant role over the years in fostering trust and goodwill among stakeholders. And these efforts have helped raise awareness, build mutual understanding among parties and other stakeholders, and clarify complex technical and legal aspects related to access and benefit sharing in Nagoya Protocol, and more recently, digital sequence information. Collectively, these informal engagements have meaningfully informed and supported the formal negotiations on ABS under the Convention and the Protocol. We at the Secretariat felt it fitting to begin this series by reflecting on the major activities and achievements of the ABS initiative and the legacy that it leaves behind. Today's webinar will feature a panel discussion exploring the initiative's interventions and their global impact, but also touching on aspects at the national and regional levels, particularly in the context of the Nagoya Protocol and the ongoing discussions around digital sequenced information. The upcoming webinars will cover a range of topics, including long-term capacity building for ABS value chains and bio-trade market structures, the ABS capacity building action plan that was adopted in the last COP-MOP in Cali, Colombia, financing bio-trade and ABS implementation, and a panel looking at accelerating NBSAP implementation with a focus on ABS. Details about these webinars is being shared in the chat. Today, we take a moment to reflect on the lessons learned from the ABS initiative's 20-year journey. Since its inception around 2005-2006, the initiative has evolved through what emerged as 5 distinct phases. I believe Catherine will take us through those phases. And last week in South Africa, the initiative held its closing ceremony, bringing together partners from across sectors, governments, indigenous people, local communities, academia, industry, and the donor community to reflect on its rich and multifaceted legacy. Today, we've just got 90 minutes, but we hope to capture key insights from this journey through a panel discussion and a presentation. Once again, welcome to this important webinar. The ABS initiative will guide us through today's session. We are providing the platform, they are providing the content, and we trust the panel will provide a comprehensive overview of their work, its impact, and lessons learned. We also hope that this session will help us reflect on the road ahead with Target 13 Goal C calling for a significant increase in benefit sharing. It's time to ask then, what have we learned, what needs to change, and how do we move forward as we go through this webinar series. And just an important reminder before concluding, a quick reminder that for COP-MOP 6, the focus will be on the assessment and review of the effectiveness of the Nagoya Protocol. And to support this process, we kindly remind parties that the deadline for submitting the first national report under the protocol is 28 February 2026. And therefore, to assist parties, the Secretariat will host a dedicated webinar on the 29th of September 2025 at 9 a.m. Montreal time to address questions related to the report and its publication on the ABS Clearinghouse. With these remarks, I warmly welcome you once again. Let us make the most of today's session and enjoy the insights and reflections that will be shared. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Tauko, for setting the scene and for inaugurating this webinar, the first of a series. It's also my pleasure from the ABS initiative to welcome all of you. And Tauko said, we have just 90 minutes and we have prepared a glimpse. And we are together here also with some of our allies on the journey we took in the last 20 years. And we will dive into a short panel discussion and perspectives from the global level and the impact the work of the project has done. And then also give you a short overview, more in detail from the project lens before we then close off. We also will share a few resources, of course, with you that you can have. You all may know the website of the initiative where we do have stored all these resources, and also we'll make sure that this will be available in the future. And you mentioned it already, Tauko, last week we celebrated the highlights of 20 years and also further strengthened this network and the people and the connections between people and topics. What makes the ABS initiative really unique. And in that occasion, we shared a video that we will also share with you, that you can have a look at it, to give this overview of this 20 years. And it was a real obstacle to bring that into a video that one could watch easily and not have a whole kino night on it. So it's hard, and we will most certainly miss some of the points, some of the activities, some of the impacts that you might recall. So I hope we can give you an overview, and I would like to start with that overview to give an orientation. What do these 2 decades mean? I'm not sure if it's my camera, but I hope you all can see the shared slide. Officially, the project started.
We can't see the slides.
You can't see the slide?
And then I try again. Let me just. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and the audience can't either see.
Do you have rights to share? Okay, there
Yeah.
we go.
Here we go. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. So officially, the project as the Multi-Donor Initiative started in 2006, even if there were preparatory and first meetings where we also already started to form the idea of a project and of coming together in 2005. So this is why we talk about this 2 decades. And the first phase, the project, the ABS initiative, focused on the negotiation and the adoption of a legally binding international ABS instrument. As you all know, the Nagoya Protocol. And the biggest impact was really that the African group was able to come together and then to speak also with one informed voice. You'll hear more about that and what that did an impact on the international negotiations also. And then in the second phase, that was just in that time where then the Nagoya Protocol was adopted by COP10, and switching over to the phase 3, in which in 2014 then the protocol came into force. And that in that phase, we focused more on the ratification of the protocol and also on the development of ABS policies in the partner countries. So the support was to partner countries, first on the African continent, and then also expanding to Latin American and Caribbean countries. And this is where these numbers then came into place, where more and more countries came parties to the protocol in Africa and also all over the world. And then after the Nagoya Protocol was into force, the 4th and longest phase with the biggest expansion also on the globe and on activities was the development of national frameworks and ABS agreements in the focus. And the focus there also was including IPNDLCs and how agreements with IPNDLCs, a focus with gender integrated into these agreements for benefit sharing, were then in the focus of what we did, where we tried to develop instruments that help to develop capacities, that help to develop negotiation capacities, and so on. So draft regulations, ABS agreements were huge outcomes out of this phase. And then coming to the last and current phase that we are closing by end of this year, we had as a starting point the Global Biodiversity Framework, which was adopted in 2022. And there, especially with Goal C and Target 13, the topic of benefit sharing got more international visibility, and it was not just the, if I may to say, the niche of the Nagoya Protocol. It is much more broader and much more higher on the agenda than that. So we focused on the facilitation of benefit sharing in different levels and moments, and the integration of ABS and DSI, which was then also already in the picture, into these GBF implementation parts. That is, in one slide, the different phases of the ABS initiative, which is on the one hand the project, on the other hand the manifold partners, allies, and persons who shaped and grew with this project together. So I'm very happy to now hand over to Hartmut. Hartmut has been with the initiative for many, many years, and he will guide us through first the panel discussion and afterwards the short input. Over to you, Hartmut.
Yes. Again, hello. And let me just go to the next slide. Well, that's what we will, let's say, present as the topics of this webinar. Lessons learned from the 2 decades, impacts, and advancing access and benefit sharing for people and partnerships. The panel will consist of 2 parts. One, the webinar. One is the panel where we invited 4 eminent negotiators, but also ABS implementers who participated in all these discussions for many, many years. And then a presentation about our work in the different countries and regions. So let me just establish also the link between that timetable Katrin just showed and the information we will present in this webinar. So in the panel we are going to talk about more or less the international fora in which the ABS initiative was active and supported several negotiations. The negotiation of the Nagoya Protocol right in the beginning, and then later on from 2018 to 24, the negotiations of the DSI multilateral system or mechanism, as it was called in the end. This is where we cooperated with a lot of governments, stakeholders, users, etc. That these activities we will cover in the panel, and then the second part is a presentation about our activities at mainly the African level, regional and national level in Africa, starting more or less after the adoption of the Nagoya Protocol in 2010. And then we go into partner countries when the protocol was adopted. Also our donors asked us to really now focus on the implementation of the protocol. That was the time when we had a selection process for partner countries, and when we developed a lot of approaches how to go to the countries. And I think I just can say this right now. One of the insights and guiding principle was that all our partner countries were very different. They were at a very different stage of ABS implementation development. So activities and approaches really had to be adapted to the country's specific environments. Finally, as we also said, the time is limited, so we only focus on a few examples, on a few, let's say, cases. But I think we will be able to show you our main methodologies and how we adapted them to the different countries. And as Katrin already said, the ultimate goal of all ABS activities is to create monetary and non-monetary benefits from the utilization of genetic resources, associated traditional knowledge and digital sequence information. And of course, I would like to emphasize this to share those benefits in a fair and equitable way. That should be really the main aim of all ABS interventions. So, and you can see that in our timeline, starting at the policy level at supporting regulations, contract negotiations, in the end, really to come to activities where users and providers work together and are able to produce tangible benefits. Well, with that, I like to introduce our panelists. Let me first close this presentation so you can see us again. The panelists we have invited, there are 4 of them, played a significant role in shaping these UN negotiations of the Nagoya Protocol, which began in 2004. They also participated in the subsequent ABS negotiations after the adoption and entry into force of the protocol, and then finally also in the negotiations under the CBD to establish the DSI multilateral mechanism, which actually was happening in Cali, Colombia in 2024. And beside that, the panelists also participated in the respective implementation of the protocol for quite a long time. So maybe first I like to introduce Martha Fatso Kalamba from Malawi, and I think I would like to ask the panelists also to switch on their cameras so that we can see them. Martha is an experienced natural resource. Here we are. Good to see you. Management specialist working for the Environmental Affairs Department in Malawi for a long time. She has represented Malawi and also Africa in various ABS and DSI negotiations, including serving as a co-chair in several DSI meetings. And also in Malawi, she had been the national ABS focal point since 2014, driving really the development of a functional national ABS framework. And in that position, in that function, we also cooperated with her and Malawi a lot, especially in contract negotiations, which was, I think, a very interesting part of our work. So thanks for joining the panel. Then the next is Katie Beckett. Katie, she currently works for the UK's Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, where she is leading the ABS and CBD negotiations since 2017. And she also gained experiences in implementing the Nagoya Protocol because she was responsible in another department for the national enforcement of the Nagoya Protocol and the respective UK regulations, I think, whatever they are, for compliance. But also before she started to work for government, she had a long-term engagement with the NGO Phytotrade for many years. That organization focused on the sustainable development, on developing sustainable and ethical ingredients from Southern Africa's biodiversity. And in that context, of course, biotrade and ABS were on the agenda. And in this role, we met her first and also started to work with her since that time. Then we have Henri Novion from Brazil, who is also there. He currently is the director of the Genetic Heritage Department in the Brazilian Ministry of the Environment, which is the central government body responsible for implementing Brazil's national framework. And before that position, he had several other positions in the Ministry of Environment, all dealing with biodiversity, ABS and DSI. We also know him since many years. And actually for more than 2 years, Henri was a consultant for the ABS initiative and we were doing some very interesting work also on DSI. And like Hugo, our last and fourth panelist, he participated also in the early ABS and CBD negotiations in the 2000s, but at that time he was working for the Brazilian Social Environmental Institute and represented Brazilian civil society. Also, he has a long track record. All that. Thanks for joining us today. And the fourth one is Hugo Maria Schalli. I saw that he joined. He had some.
Hugo is
Hugo?
there invisible, Hartmut.
He's visible. So I can't see him on my screen. So then that's all fine. So Hugo, thanks for joining us. You are actually from Austria, but we know you as a long-standing negotiator for the European Union. And we've been in contact since the ABS initiative was founded, actually. You joined the European Commission in the late 90s, I see, and worked at several directorates, including DG Environment, where you were leading the EU during the negotiations of the Nagoya Protocol and the DSI multilateral mechanism, including various other ABS rounds in between. In your time at DG Environment, you were also responsible and instrumental for developing the EU ABS compliance regulations, which entered into force in 2014. And we are especially happy to have you on this panel because actually you retired from your position after the Kali CBD, and I hope that you now can enjoy your time, have the freedom to choose how to spend your time. And we are very happy that you agreed to come again to our panel and give us some insights. Well, that's a short introduction of our four persons. And I would like to start with Fatsu with the first question, because I think when you started your ABS and CB negotiations, you entered and you became part of the African group of negotiators, which has received some years of ABS capacity development support from the initiative. And as we know, that was a long-standing, let's say, demand of many African negotiators, also of the African Union Commission, which supported us in that exercise. So what was your experience to come into such a group that made a lot of efforts to develop common positions and common understanding? Do you think that all this time of capacity development had effect on the enhancement of the performance of the African negotiators?
Thank you so much for the introduction and also for inviting me to be on the panel to share my experience, specifically with the support that the initiative has been given to the AGN and also Malawi specifically, because as a country, we also received support to build our capacity at national level. So I would say that since I became an ABS focal point in 2014, when we were adopting the Nagoya Protocol, afterwards, most of the information about ABS and also getting the capacity to understand or unpack the Nagoya Protocol and how we can translate it at national level was through the capacity initiatives that were being supported by the initiative. I remember my very first meeting, I think, was in Benin. There were quite a number of people. Other countries had done ABS-related issues prior to the Nagoya Protocol, and others were just starting, and we were one of those countries that was just starting. We didn't know even how to start and how to interpret the protocol. So those processes were really helpful for us at national level to be able to, as a focal point, to figure out where do you start and how do you unpack the Nagoya Protocol and translate it into something that can be domesticated. So hearing from other countries, but also experts, was very, very helpful. And I think another case at national level is basically the one that you also mentioned through our contract negotiations, because around the same time we were having new applications and we were not sure exactly whether the contracts were developed in line with the provisions of the protocol or what kind of benefits to require. And so the initiative actually supported us through legal support. They provided us with lawyers who were working with our lawyers, building in-country capacity just to develop our capacity in developing contracts, but also negotiating them. So I can say that that has been the experience in terms of national support. But specifically also I'll go to the support as an African group, part of the negotiators there, that the initiative used to organize AGN meetings. And I think it was annually, if not 2 times a year. There was a time when we were having a lot of those meetings. The first basically for capacity building, but after every capacity building, we were having a chance as African group, maybe a day or 2, to work on our African priorities that we can bring into the negotiations. So this was very helpful because we all had our country level priorities, but we also had continental priorities. And so this helped having us to come together and receive this support. It helped to bridge the gaps between our country priorities and what we can put forward at a continental level with one voice. And I think those that, us, the negotiators that were working on ABS, we were one of the most organized group of negotiators. We really spoke with one voice in most of the meetings. And I think even when we reached the point of the negotiations in the DSI, we took that with us to be able to negotiate as a group. And the initiative really worked well with the African Union, because there was always that working together with the African Union to provide the political backstopping. But also these AGN meetings that were focused on ABS, they provided an opportunity for us to have a network. And I can say that even that network, we still have it now. We still have our WhatsApp group where us as ABS practitioners from the African region, we still connect. We still have able to have the mentorship that we need, and also collaborate on relevant issues even up to this day. And also we were also involved in other cross-regional initiatives, like during the DSI discussion, some of the African negotiators participated in the global discussions, which also helped us to understand the positions of other regions, helped to build our confidence and negotiation skills. And this was even helpful for new delegates who were just coming into the scene. So I can say that this support from the initiative, in my experience, has been very helpful to me at an individual level, also at an institutional level for my institution, which is the focal point for ABS, at a country level because of the capacity building of various stakeholders that have participated in this training, but also at a regional level through the support of the negotiators. At the moment, I think for us, we really would want to build on this as an African group, and maybe secure long-term financial and technical support for African group of negotiators, because we know that there will still be emerging issues. We still need to sustain what we already have benefited from, and be able to also input into the upcoming negotiators, so that the knowledge is not lost between the negotiation cycles that we have. And also build on the national level capacity, the networking platforms at regional level that we have built, and just ensure that African priorities are still at the center of global ABS negotiations, including their outcomes, and specifically in benefit sharing and technology transfer. So that's what I can say in a space of 10 minutes for all the over maybe 10 years support we have been receiving. Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Fatso. So that, I think, was a very comprehensive description of what we were doing together. And I think I just now invite Hugo to give his insights, because of course he was sitting together with you and all the other colleagues in the room negotiating, and we know that the European Union, let's say, has a quite elaborated system of preparing negotiations and getting to positions. And so my first question to him would be, how did you experience working together and discussing and negotiating with that African group, which was, let's say, better prepared than before?
Thank you, Hartmut, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to participate, not only to share some of my experiences, but also to meet, at least virtually, a lot of good colleagues that I've been working with over the years, not only among the panelists, but as I scanned through the list of participants, there are many colleagues along in the list that I've been had the privilege to work with. Going back to the very origin of the Nagoya Protocol and what happened, one can say that the African group has always been a key negotiating group, and we will all remember, those who were there, that the agreement in Nagoya was made possible not least through a concerted agreement that the Africans could also carry. And I think that sort of was very much a lesson learned, that if you want to advance a certain subject, you actually have to bring all regional groups along, and that it was preferable to have very substantive and focused work in preparation of negotiations ahead of negotiation rounds. I think that has certainly been the lesson, and that certainly has been one of the raison d'etre of the capacity building development capacity initiative that now comes to its end in its current form. The experience that we've had from the collective cohesion, collective understanding, and also the capacity of African negotiators over time, which I think was really necessary, because when you look at the challenges that exist in the context of access and benefit sharing on the African continent, it is actually quite a sort of a case in itself, not comparable to challenges and opportunities that exist in other regions of the world. And in that sense, having a competent and knowledgeable negotiation partner has always been important. I hesitate to say it was a pleasure, because of course it presented us with many challenges in the negotiations, and but I think that it was necessary to come first to a balanced outcome on the Nagoya Protocol, and then to slowly and painfully develop the solution that we now have found for DSI, and that was sort of established, or which should I rather say operationalized, at the Cali meeting of the Conference of the Parties. What are the lessons to be drawn from that, looking at the activities that we could oversee and understand, is that such capacity building and technical assistance helps for a balanced and equitable outcome in negotiations. Its point and purpose is actually to put the discussion on a more factual basis, science-based, informed by the best available techniques and by the best available knowledge. On the other hand, what certainly is a danger in any such initiatives, that it actually becomes too wedded to the status quo, and always needs to adapt to new and emerging issues. And that is certainly what we could see in some of the early stages of the DSI discussion, since it was a challenge that we should all have been aware of, even as of the very first stage of the ABS discussions in sort of upstream from the negotiations. And that was something that was clearly visible as of the Granada meeting in early 2006, if I remember correctly. Is that the patterns of utilization of genetic resources were about to change dramatically, and that the reality of scientific practice and utilization would outpace the regulatory speed that we could achieve with an international instrument such as the Nagoya Protocol. And that is, I think, what made the sort of the support that initiatives such as the ABS initiative could lend to understanding the evolution of the system of utilization and research so valuable, because it enabled over time the realization that we actually need to look beyond existing instruments, look towards new ways of dealing with the challenge, and that helped bring about the solution that we found in Montreal and Cali. Now we are obviously at the entrance of a new era, that is the one of a new system of implementation that will have to be assessed when we meet at COP17. And in that context, certainly continued support for understanding of the situation, for collecting information, for providing negotiations with a good basis for further decision making will continue to be essential. And here I actually fully share Fatso's point in that regard. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Hugo, for insights and also I think you more or less were connecting to my next question, which I have for Katie, and this is exactly about the DSI negotiations where she took part for the UK, and well, one of the basic methodologies we are applying is this multi-stakeholder approach, bringing together the various partners in whatever topics. And when the discussion on whether and how to regulate the use of digital sequence information came up, one of our co-funders, the Norwegian government, asked us to develop capacity building approaches to support this very new, very exciting, but also complicated topic. And by this time, the idea was to not only support Africa, but to develop an approach that could serve the negotiations for all participating countries, governments, users, also academic users, commercial users, and the IPLCs, which should be one of the beneficiaries in the end. So we discussed a lot internally, and we came up with this format of global dialogues, where we were inviting key negotiators from all over the world, bringing them together with the users and the IPLCs to not to just replicate negotiations or continue negotiations, but really to increase their technical and scientific knowledge, which was, let's say, because that's not the topic which you do in your normal work, it was essential to really capacitate the negotiators on that new topic and to build trust between them, because we all know, of course, negotiations is a tough business. Yeah, you have to defend your positions, but in the end, you need to find a compromise, or the whole negotiations will fail. So, Katie, my question for you is: do you think that the format we have chosen was, let's say, was good enough to facilitate the negotiations? So what was your experiences with that? And maybe can you remember some highlights for you, or some topics that emerged of importance for you personally during these events?
Thanks very much, Hartmut. And as Hugo said as well, it's a real pleasure to be here and to see so many familiar faces, not just on the panel, but of those attending. So thank you for the invitation. And I also just wanted to say thank you so much to the initiative as well for everything that you have done over the years. As you mentioned at the beginning, Hartmut, I've had the privilege of working with the team before I joined the UK government as well, and then in my capacity as a negotiator across ABS and digital sequence information issues. So it's been a real pleasure over the years, and I've really had a lot of fun doing it as well. I mean, I think, Hartmut, in many ways, you answered your own question. You laid out many of the things that the global dialogues brought to the process. I mean, I completely agree. I think they were a really important part of that informal process that led us up to the negotiations, and they really did facilitate the level of progress that was made through those negotiations themselves as well. As you said, they brought together all stakeholders and negotiators together into an exchange, which would have been very difficult to do, I think, under the formal process. And we never have time to have that kind of dialogue during the negotiations themselves, or even in the sidelines of those. So they enabled us to build those relationships in advance, to understand the perspectives not only of other countries and other negotiating teams, but also of the stakeholders and the Indigenous peoples and local communities and representatives that were also attending them. So that multi-stakeholder relationship building and trust building right across the board, I think, was absolutely critical. It also gave us the opportunity to co-create, to also think creatively about what the solutions could look like. And I think that was one of the highlights for me, is looking at that kind of co-creation process, testing out those solutions, where we would have lost a lot of time if we'd had to do that starting from scratch during the negotiations itself. And they were always held in a setting which really kind of encouraged that open exchange, encouraged that kind of that safe place, that safe setting that allowed people to share their experiences, their thoughts, their ideas for implementation, which didn't carry the weight of kind of being there as a negotiating party. So I think the way they were set up and the way they were run actually was really fundamental to the process as well. And as I said already, it brought in others. It brought in industry, it brought in representatives from Indigenous peoples and local communities to contribute to that discussion and really build that bigger picture of what could be achieved. And then fundamentally, I think it allowed us to kind of hit the ground running at the negotiations. So it set us up for a good outcome. And that was having built an understanding of the positions of others or the ideas of others and finding out what works. I think a lot of time in negotiations, the best thing you can really do is really understand where others are sitting in their national processes and their national positions, but also what would work actually practically. And I think from my experience, having worked in both the delivery and implementation of the Nagoya Protocol and then also in the policy setting, really understanding what works on the ground is absolutely critical if you're to get a good outcome. And I think it paid off, right? I mean, I think we got a really good decision 16/2 from the meeting in Cali last year, I think is a really, really good outcome. And who knows? I mean, who knows how far we would have got without those dialogues? But I think my feeling is we might not have got as far as we did if they hadn't taken place. So, yeah, thank you to the initiative and all your efforts for putting those in place. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. Well, it was quite a bit of work, yeah. But I think also it paid off. And maybe just a short glimpse into the future. You are instrumental for this Friends of Cali movement. I hope it will become a movement.
I hope so too. Yeah. No, thanks. I mean, that was. Can you
update on can we expect any, let's say, activity of that initiative soon? Like you have like webinars or something like that? That would be interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, so the UK alongside Chile launched the Friends of the Cali Fund in June this year with some key founding members. So we're still a small group. The objective of the Friends of the Cali Fund is to enable the effective implementation of the Cali Fund itself. And we have some kind of areas that we're focusing on in the first instance. At the moment, it's a group of governments. We're looking to expand that out. We'd really like to bring the private sector into that as well. Actually, this afternoon, we have our next meeting. So the Friends of the Cali Fund will get together to plan out our next kind of round of activities up to and then beyond COP30, the climate COP, and towards the beginning of next year as well. And we absolutely will be communicating those out. And I really encourage all governments, any governments out there that are interested in becoming part of that, do just reach out, even if it's just for a really informal, casual conversation. We'd love to get you involved and love to update you on what we're doing. But thanks, Hartmut, I appreciate it.
Great. Yeah. Well, thanks, Katie, for that. And I think also it was good to hear that also being a negotiator and having experiences in the implementation and enforcement, I think that's very helpful. So you're not just talking purely at the policy level, but you also have some experiences what could work or maybe also what could not work in the end. Well, thanks. With that, I would like to go to our last panelist, Henri from Brazil. You have participated in also many negotiations. I think we can't even count them really. For you, I would like to ask you something about actually a very interesting approach of the implementation of these decisions. Because that's then the second part of work after we came to compromises and we had decisions adopted. One task of the Kunming Global Biodiversity Framework is actually the monitoring of achievements. And there's, of course, also monitoring of benefit sharing. That's one of the main topics, of course, for us. And the initiative is supporting a peer-to-peer approach between Brazil and South Africa to look into their existing monitoring systems. Both countries have a pretty advanced national framework for ABS, but also to see where are the gaps and how can we learn from each other to fill the gaps, to enhance the systems. And I think this is also for us the first time we actually support such a close cooperation at the technical and administrative level. So I would like to hear from you, is that really helpful? Is that creating new ideas and on your side? And also, should such approaches be then more or less a standard method in ABS capacity development instead of just having country interventions and going to regional and international level?
Okay. Thank you, Hartmut. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you to the Secretariat of the CBD and to the ABS initiative for having me here today. It's a pleasure to contribute to this important conversation, particularly as we reflect on 20 years of work by the initiative, which has been such a strong partner for Brazil and for many countries. This long-standing collaboration has been central in supporting South-South cooperation, which is now one of the cornerstones of the GBF, especially in relation to GoC and Target 13, as mentioned by Hartmut. This year, Brazil and South Africa launched a structured peer-to-peer exchange between our national ABS focal points, supported by the ABS. But let me correct you, Hartmut, this is not the first exchange we had with South Africa, supported by the initiative. Actually, 11 years ago, we had an India, Brazil, South Africa exchange, which was paramount for testing some of our innovations we were discussing back in Brazil in our Brazilian ABS law reform. 10 years later, we are having the same opportunity now to learn from our friends from South Africa. Our first thematic exchange was held earlier this year and focused on legislative, regulatory, and institutional frameworks. The value of this exchange has been to create a safe space for two countries with robust ABS systems to learn from each other's different approaches. Brazil, which has a declaratory digital model and an electronic system of registrations, the SysGen, in South Africa with its phased permitting framework under the Biodiversity Act and BABS regulation. From this thematic exchange, several insights emerged. For instance, non-monetary benefits remain a central area for improvement. Capacity building, joint research, and conservation support still need clearer procedures and evaluations when we discuss it on a national level. Verification is a balancing act. Some models, like Brazilian, may reduce bureaucracy but are struggling with accuracy, while others can give assurance but are still struggling with administratively heavy procedures. I believe that from our experience, we can also conclude that both systems are still evolving to better channel benefits to communities in an equitable and efficient manner. We also dived deeper into operationalizing benefit sharing discussing issues. And we had the opportunity to discuss issues such as designing financial flows that are transparent and timely, documenting and monitoring non-monetary contributions in ways that are comparable across countries, although we have very different regimes. And also clarifying obligations around traditional knowledge, including the role of community protocols, which play a very important role in both legislations. To conclude, this Brazil-South Africa peer exchange shows the value of South-South learning, especially in advancing Goal C and Target 13. We are not only improving our national systems, but also building a stronger, more coherent contribution to global ABS governance, including the discussions of the future of DSI. And having said this, I would like to commend the ABS initiative for creating and nurturing these spaces. As it's prepared to close its chapter after more than 20 years, the initiative leaves us with a living legacy of cooperation, mutual trust, and the practical tools we need to ensure that benefit sharing delivers on the promise of the convention and the Nagoya Protocol. So I would like to close my statement by saying that we in Brazil are very grateful for all the work and support we have received all of these years. So thank you very much.
Yes, thanks, Henri. So, well, it was a very exciting exercise, this peer-to-peer exchange. And you, of course, you are right. We had that before, but I almost forgot that. Yes, but it was on a broader level. Yeah, it was not now we do this on a very specific topic. And I see the question from Bart. If we have overview about the benefits which are there. No, we don't. And I think nobody has really an overview. And this is also one of our main takeaways from supporting countries in their benefit monitoring system. We also work together with Kenya and Ethiopia in that. Countries, although they are pretty active in ABS, negotiating contracts and getting monitoring of the outcome was obviously not the huge priority in the past, especially on the non-monetary side. The monetary side is in most countries very simple because you need to deal with money and you have your accounts and whatever. So that generally is not a big problem, but telling the world what is about the non-monetary benefits will be very difficult. And this is also a great benefit you receive out of the ABS work. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks to all the 4 panelists. With that, I would like to close and directly also connect then to the work in the regions and the countries where Henri already, introduced us into one aspect of cooperation. Thanks a lot. So I'm going back to my presentation and hope we can see it now. Is it visible? Just a short.
Yes, it is.
Good. Very fine. Okay. So what can we do? Well, we decided to present three aspects of our work. One is the implementation of the Nagoya Protocol on ABS at the regional and national level. The second is supporting the involvement of IPLCs in value chains, and then also very important, the inclusion of the private sector in these activities. Well, we start pretty early. After the adoption of the protocol and our experience of cooperating with the African Union Commission, it was decided that strategic and practical guidelines for the African Union should be developed. We entered in quite long process to do that. These guidelines were finally adopted by the highest level, by the AU summit, and that was of course quite a success and could guide countries in the development of their national frameworks. And we also then were, as I mentioned, we were tasked also by our donors to then support the implementation of the protocol at the national level. For that, the initiative and its many consultants, which I also would like to thank here without naming all of them, developed a concept for national ABS gap analysis to really see where are the countries. We had questionnaires, we had country visits to see where is a country, what is needed, which country is let's say a good candidate for the cooperation. And then after that, one of our crucial also publications and methodologies was to develop ABS implementation options, because we see that there are many ways how to implement the Nagoya Protocol. For example, one very crucial thing is, do you have one competent authority or several? Yeah, these elements of your framework, they have to be discussed. The pros and cons have to be discussed before the process of the national development of a framework is starting, that we could develop in some countries. And in the end also to support communication in Africa and coordinated implementation. We had in total 13 Pan-African ABS workshops, including excursions to ABS cases from 2006 to 2020. Here in that case, we see we visited a company in South Africa that produced drugs and medicine from biodiversity. So that was a long engagement at the regional level for developing strategic approaches to develop national ABS frameworks. Then, of course, it was already mentioned many times, one of the core elements of ABS on the ground is to develop MAT, which are actually ABS contracts, which specify the benefits which should be shared. For that, since a long time, we developed a handbook, an ABS contract tool, which is now available in third edition, and based on case studies and legal research on suggestions, explanations, how the different provisions in ABS contracts should look like. We had a lot of trainings at the regional level in Africa, the Pacific and Caribbean region, but also at the country level. And here I like also just to mention very briefly, we didn't only work in Africa, but due to the funding by the European Union, we also could extend our work in the Pacific and Caribbean regions. which was largely actually at the regional level and not so much at country intervention level. And what we also did, in many cases, we supported countries and providers in very concrete ABS contract negotiations. And in many cases, that then led to ABS contracts and agreed benefits. So that essentially was a proof that national ABS systems are functioning and that providers and users can agree. That was another part of our work to make the protocol effective. And then a third element which I would like to highlight is to develop IT-based system and also artificial intelligence, machine learning for efficient and effective administration. The initiative and consultants developed a concept for an IT-based system for supporting the application, the permitting, and the monitoring of utilization. Because we saw that many countries and still up to now have paper-based systems which produce a lot of dead information, and you are not really able to monitor, for example, your contracts. That was a publication from 2016 for the concept. And as I say, one element which we are still working on is using all that information on users and resources to actually track the utilization in patents. You can see that example here, but also publications. So we are able to provide a full monitoring approach for all publications which are in the public space to see what was happening with your resources in research and also in patent applications. In that regard, we supported many national institutions in developing these application and permitting systems. And one element is really that we wanted to bring together all institutions that are involved in ABS permitting. There are many countries ask for research permits, etc., so that all institutions can work together in an integrated way and see where are the others, so that the user really in the end gets all permits which are necessary. That work has been done in Kenya, South Africa, Namibia, Cameroon, Madagascar, and also India, which had a big bilateral ABS program. Then the second element is actually the engagement with IPLCs in biodiversity-based value chain. The role of indigenous people and local communities in biodiversity and ABS has been highlighted by the Global Biodiversity Framework. We all know that IPLCs are crucial in conserving and biodiversity and its sustainable use. And there we initiated several processes in our partner countries. I'm going to start with Kenya. Kenya has several groups, NGOs, whatever, working on IPLC matters, but mainly it's on land rights and human rights. We found that looking into biodiversity, ABS and biotrade, there's a certain lack of an organized approach. So the initiative supported the foundation of a national IPLC trust in Kenya with caring about biodiversity and sustainable use. And then, of course, in order to really be effective at the ground level in a country like Kenya, you need to cooperate with the county governments, which are, you have quite some independence in economic activities and also in environmental activities. And we chosen to start with the Marsabit County at the Ethiopian border in the north, because they were developing a strategy on gums and resins valorization. That's like gum arabicum or myrrh and such substances. We supported the validation of this strategy, and we were really then applying the multi-stakeholder approach to bring together all relevant stakeholders, the collectors at the ground, policymakers, industry, NGOs, etc., to create larger awareness and also to create capacities really to enter into the value chains. And for that reason, we were linking local communities to the private sector in order to really start collecting the resources and entering into business, because then and only then you can really create substantial benefits. That process was pretty successful in Kenya. The first groups are already collecting gums and resins, and we hope the initiative is taken up by the county and brought to fruition. Here is an example from Côte d'Ivoire. That's a second partner country. There we've decided to show the real time frame in which we did all this activity. There it was decided to go for traditional medicinal plants, to choose them for valorization, and there was let's say hardly any organization behind this activity. There were multi-stakeholder workshops which really developed shared visions of how to valorize the traditional knowledge and the plants. We had trainings with the Pharmaceutical Regulatory Authority. We invited other African experts in the use of traditional plants, and an action plan was developed. And here also the action plan in the end was signed by the relevant authority, and I think that is also one of the recipes for success, that you must develop all players in value chain to come to a good end. Because if you lose, let's say, if you don't involve government in the end, then because they are responsible, they do the regulations, they are implementing whatever regulations, then all your work won't be successful. Well, and the end is also now that there was a scientific study on which elaborated on the resources and found that all these resources are suitable for valorization. Now the action plan should be amended. And also here, we hope that through this groundwork, we were able to lay the foundation for future work in Côte d'Ivoire for these value chains. The third country where the initiative, especially through its, let's say, sub-program, the RBO sub-program, is very active, is in South Africa. And here we've selected one example, the Wild Harvester collaboration around the resource of honeybush. That's, you see that plant growing there. That's also a plant which is traditionally used by the local communities. Here it was due to a lot of work by let's say also academia and other groups. It was really possible to go into developing an approach which they call the biocultural intelligence perspective. So to see what are the demands of local communities, what are their traditional uses, how do they want to see their land develop, etc. A biostewarding circle was founded, really looking into the priorities of the local communities, also to enable them to become a competent and strong partner in business relationship and also towards their government. And finally, what they called relation agreements were involved. That's more or less the agreement how the harvesters, the buyers, and the landowners work together to develop fair business relationships. That was a very long process, but I think it was also a very successful approach to ensure that finally the communities will benefit from the use of their resources. Here we have then the third part is involving the private sector, because that is also something we learned very early in the ABS initiative, that of course without the private sector you won't create substantial monetary benefits, because that's where you sell products based on biodiversity. Here one example from South Africa is involving local communities and bringing them together with the buchu industry in South Africa. Buchu is also a small plant, which you can see there, which delivers substances, fragrances, which are used in many different industries. So this is one of these cases where you don't have a major part of your product based on genetic resources, but it's just a fragrance which is well a very minuscule component of a final product. And that was also a very successful example where the communities were really introduced into the work of the private industry. What are their demands? What are their standards? Which standards have to be met also by the community in harvesting? So that was an interesting aspect of the work in South Africa, which was also successful in the end to build this network between the communities and the industry. The last example then is again from Kenya, and here it was found out that transparent relationships between the private sector and the IPLCs was, let's say, the measure of which we had to support. We had a market assessment that revealed that there are some, let's call them visible and long-term private sector players where you can find information. They have web pages, they appear in national events or newspapers. And there is, on the other side, there's a quite substantial gray market in Kenya on gums and resins, where we focus, and maybe also on other substances where the private sector, let's say, reacts or acts in a very opaque way. And that was also observed by local groups which are collecting these gums and resins. And we have chosen the way to bring together those companies which are community aware, as we call it, together with the county government and the IPLCs to really talk about substance. So what are the amounts these industries are collecting? What are they selling? We even had talks about pricing, because of course that is very important. And in the end, I think it was pretty successful exercise to really create a transparent relationship between the private industry and the local collectors. In the end, it really resulted in a first training on the ground to show the groups from various regions how to cut the bark in a sustainable way, how to identify the different trees which bring different products. And in the end, on the right side, you see the result a few weeks after that course, that woman group had already collected a substantial amount of gums and resins and will now start a relationship to one of the private sector players. I think this in a very brief way are some of the examples and approaches and also impacts at the national level which we could achieve in the last last years, especially the engagement at the local level to create more benefits. They started, let's say, 5 years ago in South Africa, and then 22 in other partner countries. And I think we had chosen quite good approaches to bring the people together, to increase transparency, and to make people aware of the needs and also the wishes of all their different partners. Well, with that, I like to conclude the presentation and just like to show the different knowledge products and resources, or where you can find them. We have a YouTube channel, ABS Biotrade, which has more than 100 videos, as I see. There you find, for example, the recordings of our many DSI webinars. We have some, let's say, promotional videos on ABS topics as such, etc., etc. So that's a rich resource which is public and can be used by everybody. I like to give one example for the already mentioned final closing event in South Africa. We produced this video, 20 years of the ABS Capacity Development Initiative. That's also in that channel. That's a nice overview, but it was, let's say, it was a bit too long to be shown in this webinar, because otherwise we had to shorten our contributions substantially. And finally, of course, I guess many of you have been there. We have an ABS Biotrade webpage, which presents resources, fact sheets, whatever, posters, like I'm showing here one of a case in the Bahamas, which can be very useful for future activities. We are currently in the process to create a new web page and to present our resources at that web page, so that things survive after the end of the aviation initiative. Well, that's what I can present here. I like to close it and thank you a lot, and I would like to
It seems that we lost connection with Hartmut.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just posted directly in the chat the links to the video for the 20 years and also the whole channel, so that you can access it directly and not just afterwards in the presentation.
Yeah. So Hartmut, as you can see, is frozen, and so we have a bit of time for any reflections or questions. Do we have anyone asking for the floor? Seems there is no one asking for the floor. Well, in that case, then we can move towards the end of the webinar. As I've said before, through this session, we have looked at the comprehensive overview of the work and the impact and lessons learned by the 20 years of existence of the initiative at the national level, local level, international level, and regional levels. And as you saw, it was quite a legacy that is being left behind. And in my opening statement, I also asked us to reflect on the fact that we now have target 13 that is calling for a significant increase in benefits shared, and that we have to reflect on given all these lessons, given all these experiences, what is it that we need to change so that we can now actually start monitoring the benefits? And for the benefits to flow, access must be facilitated, and only then can the benefits be generated, shared, and then monitored. And so what do we do to move forward from here? We have seen the links to the resources that have been generated over the years. We will also share the presentation that was given by Hartmut with all the participants. And we hope to have you with us in the upcoming webinars that we have already started to advertise. Is that a question? I thought I saw a hand. Yeah, you have the floor. Did I see incorrectly? Or there was somebody asking for the floor. All right. Yeah, so, and just again, before we conclude, keep in mind that we will have that webinar on the 28th of February, no, on the 29th of September, for us to look at the national reports and their publication on the ABS clearinghouse. Then, with that, we would like to thank the ABS initiative for partnering with us for this webinar and for the long-standing contribution to the ABS landscape over the years. And we hope that all the resources will be available and can still continue to be used in the interest of ABS within the convention and Nagoya Protocol and the multilateral mechanism on DSI. With that, thank you, Catherine. Thank you to Hartmut. Thank you, Nia. Thank you, Alexander. And thank you to all the panelists and to all of you who have joined us today. Thank you so much. We have managed to finish our event in time. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you, Tauko, and your whole team, and all the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.